Hey everyone, this is Mason Hutchison. Welcome back to Herb Rally. Today's episode is yet another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time I'm joined by the one and only Betzy Bancroft. I've had the pleasure of meeting Betzy numerous times at various herbal conferences throughout the year, so it was fantastic to get to catch up with her in this interview. We talk quite a bit about the microbiome. Betzy's an expert in that realm. She also teaches us about plantain, one of her very favorite herbs. We also chat about advice for the aspiring herbalist and a ton more. This is a super information-packed episode, and I really enjoyed chatting it up with Betzy, and I know you're going to love this episode as well. So a huge thank you to Betzy for joining me on the show. Also, before we get into the interview, I'd like to let you know about the Herbalist Certificate Program brought to you by Green Path Herb School, longtime supporters and contributors to Herb Rally. So they're actually running a sale on the Herbalist Certificate Program, and if you apply now, you can get $300 off tuition. So really great savings there. You got to apply by December 18th, 2023, though, to get that $300 off the Herbalist Certificate Program tuition. So a little bit more about the curriculum. It's 430 plus class hours over a span of 6 months. Classes start Monday, January 22nd, and goes all the way through early July. You'll learn herbal therapeutics, materia medica, virtual field trips or in-person field trips, gardening, permaculture, plant spirit medicine, history of Western herbalism, Ayurveda, nutrition, Western constitutional herbal medicine, actions and energetics, and a whole lot more. So yeah, this is both in-person or virtual. Just depends on if you're in the Montana area, if you want to choose to do the in-person classes. So highly recommend Green Path Herb School. Yeah, check out their Herbalist Certificate Program. And one more time, you can save $300 off tuition if you register by December 18th, 2023. Thanks to Green Path Herb School for supporting the Herb Rally podcast. Also would like to thank our presenting sponsor, and that is, of course, Oshala Farm. If you're looking to purchase organically grown, U.S. grown medicinal herbs and spices, check out Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. They grow over 80 plants on their beautiful, vibrant Southern Oregon farm. So if you're looking to buy bulk herbs, definitely check out Oshala Farm. Elise and Jeff Higley, the founders and owners of Oshala Farm, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and business ethics. One more time, learn more about Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. Thanks to Elise and Jeff for supporting the Herbalist Hour. And you know I got to shout out and thank our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members as well. Thank you so much for your membership. If you'd like to learn more about the Herb Rally Schoolhouse, simply head to herbrally.com/schoolhouse, and you could use coupon code PODCAST to get your first 30 days for free. There's a bunch of classes in there. There's a private Facebook group, herbal community discounts, including one for Oshala Farm. So thank you to our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. That's going to do it for me today. I know you're going to love this episode with Betzy Bancroft. Oh, and as always, if you want to check out the video version, we post all of the video versions to these interviews on our YouTube channel. So I'll leave a link to that, to the video in the podcast show notes as well. So thanks, y'all. Talk to you soon.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really excited to have on Betzy Bancroft. Welcome to the show, Betzy.
Thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be invited.
It's been a while since we've chit-chatted. I want to say the last time we hung out was at the United Plant Savers 25th anniversary, so it's good to see you again.
Oh, that was a good time.
Such a great event. I really can't wait for them to maybe have a 30th. I guess that would probably be this year, though.
Well, I hope they do have another large gathering. I would love to get out there again and be at the sanctuary, and in that community is really special.
Did you teach a class when you were out there?
I gave an herb walk.
That's right. Okay. Very
Yeah,
good.
one of those epic herb walks on the last morning.
Okay. Well, I missed that. Actually, the last class I took with you was at the Great Lakes Herb Fair.
Yeah.
I want to say 2017, something like that. And I went on one of your plant walks, which I would love to talk to you more about plant walks later in the chat. But for now, I'd like to get to know Betzy a little bit more.
Sure.
What were you like as a child?
I was out in the woods.
Okay.
No surprise.
Yeah.
A lot of herbalists are saying, yeah, I grew up in the woods. Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey in an
Okay.
area that was rapidly suburbanizing. Yeah, farms becoming housing developments is where I grew up. But there was a pond and there were forests, and I was outside as much as I could be in those days. And yeah, hanging out with nature. And I found a patch of peppermint in my yard and started playing around with that, putting it in my water. And so yeah, the plants, like, I feel like they kind of grew into my feet and grabbed me. But yeah, because I grew up hanging out in nature.
Would you call peppermint like your gateway herb?
I guess it must have been one of them.
Yeah. Do you still have like a fondness for it?
I do like peppermint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what brought you from Jersey to Vermont?
Oh, this is a good story.
Let's hear
Well,
it.
things were not working out very well in New Jersey. Like, I was, I worked at Herbalist and Alchemist, and that was fine. And but I'd been through Winston's program. I was teaching for Winston's program, and but yeah, New Jersey was not. Let's see, I didn't fit in that well in New Jersey. So
Okay.
even though I had some good opportunities there, yeah, I didn't really fit in and stuff. And then my mom had moved to Vermont, and she went to a little herb gathering that the Carpenters had at Zach Wood's Herb Farm, and Rosemary was the keynote speaker. And she talked about United Plant Savers and that, they were going through some changes, and she was thinking about bringing the office back to Vermont and sort of regrouping a little bit. So my mom thought this would be a perfect opportunity for Betzy, because I had been sort of thinking about moving to Vermont, because like I said, it was kind of done with New Jersey. And she called me up and she told me about this opportunity. Oh yeah, then she went over to the table where Nancy Scarzella was signing up volunteers, and she said, oh yeah, my daughter's moving to Vermont, and this would be just right up her alley. And Nancy recognized my name and started talking it up to my mom and said, like, oh yeah, actually we're going to need an office manager. So mom called me up and she told me about her conversation with Nancy and that she met Rosemary and all the things, and just the light, the tinder bottle went off, all the sparks flew, and I was like, yeah. So I got that job.
And then
And
you
then
ended up, yeah, you ended up becoming neighbors with Sage
yeah,
Mountain,
and then
essentially,
I
right?
ended up, I didn't move to where I live now,
Gotcha.
my first stop in Vermont, but very soon after I landed in Vermont, I ended up becoming a housemate in the house that I live in now, which is right next door to Sage Mountain. And what a amazing, blessed, beautiful place that is. I'm really, really lucky.
Are you still involved with United Plant Savers?
I'm just on their advisory board,
You're
but
just on their advisory board.
which we don't, it's not really an active
Sure.
board, but I'm still, UPS and the people involved in it are still very near and dear to me.
Sure.
And Emily and I have thought about maybe having a UPS gathering at Sage sometime, which we'll see. Hopefully that will happen. And so yeah, it's UPS is very near and dear to me.
Totally. So you mentioned Rosemary Gladstar, of course. Who have been some of your herbal mentors along the way?
Well, the first herbalist, actually, I should mention Janie Endries, because when I went to the Herbalist Guild conference in 2019, I was in the vendor area, and it was Will Endries and Herbalist and Alchemist and UPS and VCAH and all the herbalists I had ever worked for in my whole career in one circle.
Yeah.
I was curious because I hadn't seen Will, and I worked for him or them in when I was in my 20s at the Philadelphia Folk Festival, like
That sounds fun.
time ago. So it's just such a blast from the past to see him again. And so Janie Endries is the first herbalist who like told me about plantain for bug bites and stuff like that. And plantain remains one of my very favorite plants. And and then I met David Winston. It's a long story that I won't get into, but he kind of convinced me to take his herb class. And I did, and I was grateful that I did. And in those days, he lived in his mother's attic, so we went for lots and lots of herb walks. They don't do
Outdoor
it
classroom.
because they're online. You have to sit still when you're online, and
Right.
we were out in the woods, out in the outside, going for herb walks a lot. And then I met his teacher, William Lasassier. And William was I was very intimidated by William when I first met him, but then he really was much more of a softie than he initially comes off as. And I really appreciated studying with William too. And then my job at UPS, first my job at Herbalist and Alchemist, and then my job at UPS made it possible for me to go to a lot of conferences and meet a lot of other herbalists and so forth. So yeah, there's many herbalists that I appreciate as my mentors, but I guess David was had the most influence on me, especially early on.
Totally. Have you been a herbalist basically your entire professional career, or have you had other gigs?
No, well, I mean, I've served a lot of different capacities administratively. Like I was the office manager at UPS,
Right.
and the office manager at H&A too. But so I've done some administrative tasks, but always in the service of plants.
Sure.
So yeah, I've been a herbalist my whole working career.
I would love to hear briefly, even like the origins of the Vermont Center for Integrative Herbalism, because I know you have strong ties with that, but I don't really know your involvement or the history of it. So I'd love to hear it if you could expound upon that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I moved to Vermont in 2003,
Okay.
at the very end of 2003, 20 years ago. And I already knew some of the herbalists up here because I had met them at conferences and whatnot. So when I landed, at that time, they were doing a little free clinic called the Sage Mountain Free Herbal Clinic that had grown out of Rosemary Gladstar's advanced apprenticeship. And so like I said, I was already acquainted with a few of those herbalists, so they invited me to join their practice, which I was very honored and delighted. And then Larkin Bunce graduated from what was Thai Sophia in those days. And Guido Maze, of course, was part of the Sage Mountain Free Herbal Clinic too. So, and many of the other friends who were part of it at that time sort of had other interests, other parts of their lives were taking more of their time, et cetera, et cetera. So the three of us sort of started to collaborate. And so we were practicing together, but then we started having some very interesting conversations about, hey, let's pool our experience and our skills and so forth, and let's create something. So we created VCH, Vermont Center for Integrative Herbalism. And we plotted and planned and plotted and planned and started with just 4 courses. And then we found a space, and then we, made it a full-on program. And the first was the family herbalist program, and then the first year of our clinical program. So we just started with 2 years, and that was enough. Like writing curriculum at 5 a.m. at my kitchen table. But we pulled it off and pulled it together, and it has grown. So then the next year we had 3 levels of programming because we had the family, and then the two years of clinical. And we had like 5 or 6 students in the clinical program, and it's just continued to grow and evolve. And so I am a founder, and currently I serve as a core faculty member. So I teach a good chunk of the program, and a little of this and a little of that, but all the nutrition.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Who's doing the bulk of the teaching? Is it Guido or Larkin or both?
No, me and Kristen Henningsen. So yeah,
okay.
we've had evolution. So Guido's still on our board. He's definitely still involved as a board member because we are a nonprofit organization. that was one of the early tinkerings, is what do we want to be? How do we want to organize? So we became a nonprofit organization. So he serves on our board because he's, he got a lot of things going on these days.
Sure.
And Larkin's still on the faculty, and she's the executive director. And then, yeah, I'm one of the core faculty. So Kristen Henningsen, who's awesome. She also teaches quite a bit. And now we have Lyndon DeVoyle.
Oh, yeah.
Graduates, and Io Ngozi, who's awesome. And then a few other graduates teaching like one course each. Hannah Ray Behrens teaches pharmacology and so forth. So I'd say the core is Kristen, Lyndon, Larkin, and me, and Io, and then there's a few other people who teach smaller bits. But yeah, our faculty is like 12 people now, which is very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just anytime I heard anyone was involved with VCIH, I'd always be like, oh, wow. Like I always had very like high esteem for that school. So great reputation. I can't think of the URL off the top of my head, but I'll leave a link to that in the show notes for the Herb Rally audience if they'd like to learn more about the Vermont Center of Integrative Herbalism. So thanks for taking us down memory lane. You mentioned plantain and your fascination with it earlier, and it's one of your favorite herbs. I remember one time, I can't remember if it was you or Jim McDonald, but you both said that you could probably talk to each other about plantain for like hours on end. And I remember thinking, oh man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation, listen to Betzy and Jim just go back and forth on plantain. But we got one half of that duo here today. So would you like to share with the Herb Rally audience a little bit about what you love about plantain?
Sure. Actually, Jim and I have gone to co-teach class on plantain twice.
That's awesome.
Has been really fun.
That's cool.
Everybody thinks about plantain for bug bites. Like I said earlier, one of the first things I learned is often one of the first things we learn about plants, because it's like we teach our kids about that, Yeah. But plantain it has a lot more to offer. And I appreciate it. It's a very humble and common plant, but it's an immunomodulant. What I mean? Like, yes, it's a stellar vulnerary for all things topical rashes, allergic rashes, especially, all the bug bites, wounds, whatever. But it's also an internal vulnerary. What Culpepper talked about, internal woundings, right? So, ulceration, inflammation, woundings in the gut is another thing that I use it for. And, leaky gut has become a thing. It's a big thing. And I have also gotten super fascinated about microbes. I think you're going to ask me about that too. But I use plantain as a vulnerary internally in the body. And I also use it for a lot of like hypersensitive reactivity, like again, allergies. But I really use it for the immune system as well as, again, as the typical vulnerary, and especially in the gut. I know I have to go there because this is where I really geek out.
Yeah.
The gut is where most of our immune system lives. It's all along the edges of the intestinal system as well as the other mucous membranes. And one of the few things that it seems, all the science that I've read a bunch of reviews in science around intestines and microbes and whatnot. One of the things that a lot of the researchers and scientists will say is you need to make the home for the microbes as well as repopulate their numbers, right? Because then it's a key principle in ecology that you have a niche, right, with certain resources and qualities, and then who can live there, like who takes advantage of those or utilizes those resources, But again, the principle of you have to create the happy home for them and invite them in. And I use plantain to help create the happy home for the microbes themselves. So again, to help heal the gut, help balance. They do the most work in terms of healing the gut, or they're the maintenance people in the gut. but also balancing out the immune response, which I'll get into that in a minute. Yeah. But again, you have to make a nice home for them so they want to stick around with you. And I use plantain for that. And like I said, all the hypersensitive, allergy, reactive stuff, I do orient my, how I see the body, like looking at the nature of our nature. And so tissue states is part of, I'm sure many people listening have heard about tissue states. But the heat tissue state is hypersensitive, very reactive, like going way too fast. And I like plantain for that. It does actually have some polysaccharides in it, which, we don't give it credit for, but it's a really good, like astringent emulsant, right? So it has the right actions to really do a nice job helping to heal the gut. So yeah, that's one of the ways I use it.
So you mentioned plantain giving your gut a happy home. I'm just curious, do we know the science as to why that might be effective?
Oh, it gives the microbes a happy home.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So do we know why it gives the microbes a happy home?
Yeah, because it helps to heal any because it's a vulnerary, again, like an inner woundings.
Gotcha.
When we have disruption of the epithelial lining of the intestinal system, like it's only one layer of epithelial cells. Like the interior of our gut, it's only one layer of cells. Wow. And then you have all the submucosa and Peyer's patches and whatnot, but it's only one layer. So separate, and then the mucus layer. So being a vulnerary, being a demulcent, you know that if you use demulcents very long term, like everybody knows demulcents are slimy and they're good for, soothing the mucous membranes and whatnot. Yeah. But if we use demulcent herbs and or foods, or hopefully both demulcent herbs and foods, over time, it helps the gut express more of the goblet cells that make mucus. So and a lot of the microbes that live in our large intestines live in the layer of mucus. So if we're making better mucus, if again, we're having this nice intact layer of epithelial cells in our intestine, and then that nice layer of mucus just interior to that, then we're providing a home because they're living in the mucus, and they need to be in the tube that isn't like outside the body and getting involved in the immune system and freaking out the dendrites. And anyway, yeah, it's like that's what I mean, is that it's healing, it's helping to encourage the normal mucus secretion so that the infrastructure, the structure can accommodate them, can hold them, can nourish them. And they nourish us and we nourish them. And it's actually a very collaborative environment down there.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. So I'm a big fan of nourishing herbal infusions. I've got a nettle infusion right here. Are you making like nourishing herbal infusions with plantain leaf, like cut and sifted dried leaf, or how are you consuming this?
Yeah, actually, I like to use it in tea, and I use it in tea. I'm a practicing herbalist also. Yeah. And so I give it to clients. I like to see clients with digestive issues. Here's another blast from my past. I was really blessed to have a really, really excellent science teacher in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I still remember his colored chalk on the blackboard. This was the early 70s. I remember his color chalk on the blackboard diagram of the digestive system, and from fourth grade. So I've always been fascinated by it. And then again, like I really like food. I teach nutrition. I teach a class called a course called Food is Medicine. And what's the difference between food and herbs anyway? So yeah, I've always kind of like geeked out about the digestive system, which then, because I also love nature and ecology and whatnot, like the microbe thing just fit right in. I don't know if I finished my thought, but
That's
anyway,
all good.
yeah. I've been always fascinated by the digestive system.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Do you know my teacher Howie Brownstein, perchance?
I've met Howie. He's a
Okay.
character.
He teaches the digestive system in a really fun way. He calls it Duodzilla. Maybe I'll try to throw a picture of that up here if I can find one. But he makes it very approachable, and yeah, I love the digestive system as well. So I presume we could go with either of the main species of Plantago here, right? They're both going to be pretty effective in the same way.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I think that the broadleaf plantains, the major and also Rugelii, which is the purple stemmed one, they seem a little juicier and therefore more demulcent to me. And I think of the ribwort or lanceolata as a little bit more astringent.
Oh,
yeah. Either one, whatever you got is great. Whatever someone has access to, it's all good.
so plantain is considered both mucilaginous or demulcent and astringent. Then, can you think of other herbs that are like that?
Yeah, cinnamon is like that.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Let me think. Actually, some tree leaves have some, like you chew them and you get a little demulcents, but they're also kind of astringent. A lot of vulneraries are kind of like that, but yeah, it is it's a useful combination. Especially it's not like super slimy and super demulcent, that you would be worried about giving someone constipation. It's just enough to, like, again, heal and tonify in a really good way, balance things out.
I feel like I've heard this from Paul Bergner, but I sometimes will include marshmallow root with my nettle infusion because of the whole like drying on the nettle end and then the more moistening from the marshmallow.
Right.
Are you kind of a fan of that too?
Yeah, especially people who tend to be a little bit more dry will notice the astringency or the drying nature of especially the teas that they drink, right? Or other beverages for that matter, wine or whatnot too.
Sure.
And so the drier you are, the more challenging nettle tea might seem because, again, it's drying. So yeah, really nice to balance the drying nature of nettle with the moistening nature of marshmallow. That's a beautiful combination.
I don't know if I've ever had plantain unless someone gave me a random herbal tea blend that I didn't realize it was in it, but I've never really purposely sought out to consume plantain through tea. So I'm definitely going to try that after this and maybe start incorporating in my regular routine.
Nice. It's kind of herby tasting, when you
I don't mind.
Yeah. And when you eat a fresh leaf of plantain, it tastes kind of mushroomy.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, try it.
I will. So is Jim also using this all the time with his clients and whatnot, and the internal use of plantain? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I'm also curious about the answer to that question.
All right. Well, I'll ask him when I interview him. But any other things you'd like to talk about plantain before we switch gears a little bit?
No, I don't think I have any other pearls really for that one. It's just, our students joke around like Kristen's the go-to-cola evangelist. I'm the plantain evangelist.
I'm the oat straw evangelist.
All right. That's a good one.
I talk about oat straw ad nauseum. Yeah. And blue vervain. I'm a big fan, but yeah, oat straw is my jam.
Yeah. Blue vervain is a special being here.
Is it growing where you live in Vermont?
Okay. Yeah. There's a few places around where there's like big patches on the side of the road. And there's a few like that have just sort of shown up in my yard. And then it's easy to grow here too. Blue vervain is happy in Vermont, I'm glad to say.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong Oregonian, and I don't know if you know this or not, but I moved to Wisconsin about a year ago. And so, yeah, I expect blue vervain is going to be easier to grow here. I didn't see too much blue vervain living in Oregon, but well, right on. Did you want to share any of the new science emerging about the microbiome and host relationships, or did you kind of cover that earlier?
Oh no, there's some crazy cool stuff going on in there.
Let's hear it.
Well, let me introduce this idea with the big picture concept that, in the scheme of things, it's really the microbes, unicellular organisms of many varieties, and fungi who are doing most of the actual work on the planet, right?
Wow.
Making things grow, breaking things down, helping metabolism, it's the wee ones that are doing most of the work. And then we got this idea that germs were bad.
Right.
So we've been trying to get rid of them. And then we're finding out, actually, like I said, they are doing most of the work on the planet. So first of all, humans have never been without microbes since we've been multicellular organisms. All right.
Right.
No multicellular organisms have ever been without microbes in their gut, because their guts evolved around seawater in the primordial ocean, right? And the microbes. So as I mentioned earlier, they're the maintenance people, but they're also how do we, humans only have 23,000 genes. And the fact that we have these thousands of microbes in us lends us a couple million more genes to work with in terms of being able to digest a wide variety of foods, because they can make digestive enzymes that we can't make. And we depend on that. But it's way more than that. First of all, they're also breaking carbohydrates down into short chain fatty acids that feed our cells directly. And they are signal molecules that do 20 different things for our immune system, again, maintenance in our gut, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So their metabolites are active, right? And then in the lining of the gut, right, there's those immune islands they're called gut-associated lymphoid tissue, Peyer's patches, et cetera. And there's these really cool cells called dendritic cells, not to be confused with the dendrite on the axon or the nerve cell, but they kind of look like that. They're these looks like a splat,
Yeah.
little bits. But they have these periscopes. They can reach their arm up between the epithelial cells and check out what's going on in the tubing of the gut. The periscope up between the cell, right through the claudins, all the little connector units between the cell and who's up there, what's up there. And so they're sampling what's in, so the dendritic cells are sampling what's going on in the intestines, and then communicating that with the B cells and the T cells and so forth, which are part of the acquired immune system, the part of the immune system that learns. And the part of what the dendritic cells are looking for is they are sensitive. They have these little periscope units. There's a pattern recognition receptor up there, which is just a kind of receptor that looks at fragments and molecules and stuff like that. And they can tell the difference between a commensal, that is friendly microbe, a pathogenic microbe, or bits of damage from wounding or whatever in the gut. MAMPS, PAMPS, and DAMPS. Cute acronyms for that. Okay. But the thing is that the microbes, first of all, they're, like I said, they're the maintenance people, but they also play really important roles in facilitating a state of peace and tolerance within the intestinal system, which again is where not 70% of our immune system is. So because they can tell the difference and they can recognize who's there and what's happening and so forth, the microbes are setting up a situation where we have dominance of regulatory T cells And Treg cells, that's what they are. Treg cells are they're peacekeepers. They're anti-inflammatory in the sense that they're not like the warriors that are going out to like find danger and so forth. They're the ones that are like just keeping peace and tolerance to the ecology, because we have all these others within us. The immune system has to like be okay with that. Like the immune system has to be okay when someone gets pregnant and they have to like, this is an alien in your belly. Like the immune system has to tolerate that. So it's facilitated by T regulatory cells and also immunoglobulin A. Immunoglobulin A is the most common immunoglobulin in the intestinal system. And they're special too, because they can also like move around. They can go from down in the lymphoid tissues into the tubing of the gut and back, and like they can move around in there, which is crazy stuff. So they're facilitating peace and tolerance in the gut. They're facilitating a healthy, intact epithelial layer with the good mucus and all those kind of things in the gut. They're also facilitating our ability to digest and actually assimilate too a wide variety of food, which is really good why we have a big brain, because we can eat lots of different things. And they are part of the conversations. And this is one of the most profound things about the whole deal, is that, again, we have these receptors and we have signal molecules. And basically what runs the human body is chemistry, right? We have all these different chemicals that communicate with our different systems. I mean, some of them are called hormones, some of them are called cytokines, some of them are called peptides, right? But they're all communication chemicals, right? And the microbes can hear them and they can make them too. So they're in on the conversations between our gut and our brain, between our endocrine system and our immune system, between like all the regulatory systems that are keeping these harmonious balances for us to be in homeostasis. The microbes are in on all of those conversations. They're part of all of those conversations. Again, because they can both synthesize signal molecules that our human cells can read, and they can read the signal molecules made by our human cells. So they're part of that chemical communication that's going on, and they know what's up. And they're not only part of the conversation, they're part of what help, again, facilitate our normal functions, which is kind of amazing considered we thought they were just germs.
Yeah.
Just get rid of those, they're bad, they're just germs. But no, they're actually like make us who we are and what we are. And no mammals can live without them. It's really kind of crazy.
I could tell that you are incredibly passionate about this topic. Life is just absolutely amazing. Like listening to you teach about that, I'm like, holy shit, there's so much going on there. I have to ask, you mentioned this kind of in passing. You said something about one of the reasons we have big brains is because we could eat lots of different foods. I was just kind of curious if you're able to expound upon that a little bit more.
Well, just something that I'm quite curious about is ancient history. Mm-hmm. I've read a little bit about ancient history, and one of the things that really struck me was a couple of the resources that I read. These ancient historians don't actually see the invention of agriculture as a positive step for humanity.
Yeah.
Because it created the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
Which, look how that's turned out. But yeah, like humans are able to eat a very wide variety of different kinds of foods. So yeah, one of the other things that I read is that when we learn to use fire to cook food, it vastly increased the number of different foods that we can safely consume. And that's when our brain started to grow so large and complicated. Is availability of a wide variety of nutrients enabled us to evolve the way we have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I've heard that too.
Mhm.
What is your take on, like, say, playing in the dirt and getting some microbes that way?
All the microbes, all the
All of
ways.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I taught a class at Sage Mountain last summer. It was an in-person weekend class, and it was really fun. And the people who came were all fermenters, which was very curious to us. But that's one of the things that we did in the class was like go lay on the earth. It was not quite warm enough this summer to swim in the pond, but like, yeah, I mean, that was part of the deal. We were out in the meadow eating plantain and other wild edibles and so forth. But yeah, gather microbes from everywhere you have access to them in, safe, natural environments. And it's
Sure.
not always easy to access those kinds of places. But if we can, even occasionally cuddling with pets who've been outside,
Totally.
it's all good sources of microbes. Because it's true, diversity is a really, really important principle in how nature works.
Yeah.
And so we want to support diversity. So lots of exposures, yes. Expose yourself to nature.
Amen. I mean, that's what the show's all about. Like,
Mhm.
I love that. Are you a clinical herbalist, Betzy?
Yeah, I
You
am.
are. Okay.
I don't see a lot of clients, and I have never been a full-time practitioner, but I did get to a point because I've been teaching herbal medicine for over 3 decades, which
Wow.
kind of blows my mind.
Time flies.
Yeah, but I got to a point in teaching, especially teaching clinical students, where I really felt like, oh yeah, like I need to have some more clinical experience that I'm actually teaching from my experience,
Right.
what I've seen work and so forth. So yeah, I had to step up. And so yes, I have been a clinical herbalist for 30 years or something too, but never, like I said, as a full-time. I've been teaching a lot more than I've been practicing.
I love that. Yeah, one of your passions is teaching, but the way to stay up to date and informed, you get to have clients to kind of help your teaching skills. But I guess I asked because I'm kind of curious. Say you had a client come in and they had gut issues. How would you work with them on helping them improve their gut and their microbes and whatnot?
Yeah, the basic, like a lot of us have sort of a like basic core protocol sort of a
Sure.
thing. And I know a lot of herbalists have their favorite recipes for what we're calling gut healing teas.
Uh-huh.
So some classic, well, plantain's always in there.
Mm,
Plantain's pretty much always in there.
totally.
But other vulneraries, demulcents, so things like, yeah, marshmallow leaf, chamomile's a really, really nice one too,
Yeah.
calendula. I work with raspberry leaf as an astringent in the gut a good bit because it's not too astringent, just enough, you know what I mean? And and then let's see, I want people to get a diversity of microbes, hopefully both again in food and get out in nature. I literally once, now that we can see clients on Zoom, they're not all just local in person. I was talking with someone who lived in another state, and I really had the sense that she needed more diversity of microbes. So I looked on a map and found out where the state parks in her area were. I said, use your state park just to your west, and I think you want to go there. So yeah, some collection of practices. I typically suggest people try to get 2 different ferments a day, whether it's, it depends on their diet. If they're like dairy products are a nice source. There's a bunch of them. They're tasty and easy to get, like yogurt. Obviously not everybody consumes dairy, so
Right.
find what works for them. But things like miso and lacto-fermented vegetables. I like to give recipes and help people learn how to make lacto-fermented vegetables, because they're way more if you have the whatever you need to actually make it is so much cheaper to make it than buy it. I know.
Oh yeah.
And then you can get really creative, put all kinds of interesting things in your lacto ferments. And then, so even, a homebrew or whatever, whatever works for the person, whatever they like and have access to, you know what I mean? But yeah, I want them to hopefully, engage with nature and invite more living foods in.
Yeah,
and
you mentioned
slowly over time, it's like another thing that I notice sometimes if like somebody, like, for example, takes a probiotic supplement, it can cause a real ruckus in their gut.
Oh, I bet.
All kinds of gas, and they're like, what did you do to me? So slowly and surely, and I definitely focus more on food and, again, exposure to nature more than encapsulated kinds of products.
What's your take on prebiotics?
Same. You start slow because you start feeding those microbes, they start partying down, and then you gas.
Yeah.
Especially sunchokes and stuff like that. But yeah, slowly but surely. I do think that we humans need to eat fiber.
Yeah.
Right. We whatever our dietary strategies, we have to eat plants. And we have to eat some fiber just for the way our intestinal system works, and there's a lot of science around all of that. But yeah, we have to eat plants with fibers in them because we have to feed our microbes. And so whole foods is also, again, my typical strategy. It's not like I never suggest supplements to people, but I way rather have few people relying on food than bottles. So yeah. So food, I make sure people are getting some good plant foods in their diet.
Yeah. So in my early 20s, I was incredibly dogmatic about diet and everything. And I've since mellowed out quite a bit. So I'm not trying to come from a place of demonizing anything right now, but I'm just kind of curious what the science is telling you about, say, consuming refined sugar and that effect on the gut.
Well, this is an interesting question. There's no fiber in refined sugar.
Right.
None.
Zilch.
There's not even any B vitamins. And, the body needs B vitamins to even make use of the sugars. Like, yes, our cells burn glucose. We are giving our cells, when we eat sugar, we are consuming cell food, right?
Yeah.
But all the nutrients that we need to make use of that cell food are not there. So it's actually robbing us of B vitamins. And then there's no fibers. There's no fibers. So we're not enhancing the lactobacilli and other short chain fatty acid metabolizing microbes on the one hand.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, when we eat food like that, the microbes that are able to take advantage of that sugar are not the same ones that do all these other beneficial jobs for us, right? So this is a principle of ecology. Again, whatever the resources available, someone will show up who can make use of those resources, right? So if the only resource, or if one of the key resources we're giving our microbes is sugar, that means we're going to be encouraging sugar consuming microbes. This is a bit general, honestly. I know that it's a bit general, but like, who do we want to feed? Do we want to feed opportunists? Like one of the things that I know from reading the science happens, if we have a lot of damage in our guts, the microbes that are able to take advantage of that, in other words, microbes that are able to utilize proteins that they didn't make, those are the ones that proliferate because those are the resources available. But again, the microbes that can use those kinds of resources are not the same kinds of microbes that, again, make us short chain fatty acids and make us other metabolites or breakdown products that actually serve us. So we're not serving our bodies by eating a lot of sugar. And it's also crazy hard on our endocrine system because we didn't evolve to be able to deal with that either, So it's basically the more processed the food, the further it is from nature, and the more the human body, like, what do we do with this?
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like when you're initially weaning yourself off of sugar, it can be incredibly challenging because those microbes that are used to consuming the sugar are hungry for it. But then as you go down the path, then it becomes almost like I don't have a sweet tooth. And I feel like one of the reasons for that is because I've not fed those microbes that are wanting the sugar all the time. You know what I mean? So, but
I have microbes that whisper in my ear, eat bread, which is one reason I really avoid it, because I don't want to encourage them. But yeah, again, they can talk to us.
Yeah.
They can communicate with our brains, which is kind of crazy and scary. But yeah, that's one of the places I think the cravings comes from.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, if we eat good things, our body knows what to do with them. And again, we cultivate a healthy ecology by who we feed.
Very well said. Do you have any recommendations for resources for folks that might want to learn more about the microbiome and just anatomy and physiology in general for the herbalist, I suppose?
Well, where I've learned, I read a couple of just books. The first book that really helped me get my mind around it was called The Human Superorganism by a researcher by the name of Rodney Dietert. And he's at Cornell, or at least he was when he wrote the book. So The Human Superorganism, which on the cover has this like a hand made out of all these microbes. Cool. And then I read another one called The Brain-Gut Connection, I think it's The Mind-Gut Connection. And that one's by Emmerin Mayer. And he's a medical doctor and a gastroenterologist and researcher. And he's in Southern California. And those two, like reading books that were written by researchers, which have just enough science in them. Like, in other words, they're written for lay people, but there's enough science. And I understand not all the details of science, but I'm pretty good.
You're good.
At least to a tissue level. Don't ask me about receptors and enzymes.
Sure.
I'm good to a tissue level. But again, reading books written for lay audiences, I could get my mind around it in a really good way. And both of them use a lot of good examples and analogies. And analogies work for me. I use a lot of analogies when I teach too. And then I read reviews. So fortunately, a lot of the science that's being done on microbes is available free through sites like Google Scholar and PubMed. So you just have to do a search and try to filter your search on reviews, because the reviews are in more plain English, then don't get way into the weeds and all the receptors and whatnot. So look for like microbiome or microbiota. The difference in those words, microbiota is the microbes and microbiome is their genes. But search on one of those words and then like some criteria like immune system or metabolism or, whatever like particular thing you're looking for. And then you can also filter a search on free, like you don't get the whole study for free. Yeah. And so there's a number of places, like there's some researchers in Ireland and there's researchers again in like LA area and so forth, that are putting out a lot of good research. And again, you can find reviews of this research that are easier to read and get our minds around. It's again not like way into the technical jargon. And that's what I find the most useful, especially again having that framework from those two books. And then now I have the enough understanding to read the reviews, but yeah, that's how I learned about them. I hope that's useful.
Absolutely. I'll leave links to that in the podcast show notes and everything, to those books that you recommended. Have you heard of the Anatomy and Physiology coloring book?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
It's a good one. In fact, I still have my anatomy coloring book from herb school with all
Yeah.
and I colored in a lot of those diagrams.
It's a great way to kind of
Yeah,
get
that's a good
another
one.
broad overview. Yeah. I took anatomy and physiology a couple of years of it at Lane Community College. So another potential place for folks to learn is that like maybe your local community college, maybe there's some classes that they're offering there for cheap, instead of like university prices and whatnot. But
it's very new science,
yeah.
and people might notice that it hasn't always percolated down to like their local doc or just, there's still a lot of people who are, afraid of germs. There's still people who get like really kind of like freaked out about the idea that we have critters within our bodies. But just know that we are nature, it's not something to be scared about. It's just, we are part of nature and nature is part of us and we are nature. I mean, it's not even parts, it's we are, and nature is us. And that's a good thing, because one of the things I especially love to say about the microbes is they're really, like, maybe generous is too much of an anthropomorphic concept, but they feed each other. Obviously they feed us, but that's to their advantage because we're their hosts. But they're also feeding each other. They're also cooperating with each other. And like, sure, this was my keynote at Great Lakes, right? Like, surely if microbes can do it, humans can do it. As above, so below, right?
That's right. I love that. Well, do you have time for a couple more questions, Betzy?
Sure.
Awesome. Let's do it. I like to ask this a lot of the times in these episodes. For those looking to make herbalism, say, their career or lifestyle, do you have any advice for like the budding herbalist?
This is a big question. We had a whole, like, our students this year were asking us that question, like, quite a lot. Most of us are diversified in some way. Like I said, I started out working for a practitioner. I was running the office for a practitioner. And then I was working for Herbalist and Alchemist. So I worked at an herb company, and then I worked in the UPS office. United Plant Savers, not the brown.
Yeah, exactly.
Green UPS.
Right.
So sometimes we have to do like herb adjacent kinds of like activities, and again, in the service of plants or in the connected to plants. But I have also found that teaching was a very good way to build my practice. In fact, some of the clients that have worked with me the longest met me because they came to a class and they're like, oh, I guess, this person seems like she has some clue about what's going on. So I will entrust myself with her. And so, yeah. And like I said, many of us like do a little of this and a little of that, and I live in Vermont, which is kind of Vermont, very typical for Vermonters in general, also to like have a few different gigs that they're doing, sure. Especially seasonal kinds of gigs. But yeah, again, even just trying to find jobs that have something to do with nature or plants, like working with kids outside or whatever it is, it's, all of that builds skills and is a good thing. So, yeah, you may maybe not like make a living as a practitioner just like that, but like some herbalists like start selling their goodies at the farmers market and then meet people and become, part of the community and so forth. So a lot of connecting and, talking to people, helping people. And the more you do that, again, the more your network will grow and your community will grow. And I think community is really important. And that's who you share with and take care of is your community. So, yeah, that's has been what's worked for me. And I've seen that with some of my graduates and so forth too. some of my graduates also go on and get further education in acupuncture, or they already have experience in massage therapy, or I have other students who've gone on for like counseling skills and that kind of thing. And that's a very useful approach, because then you have, some legal credential.
Right.
Like us radical herbalists who never want to be legal because we don't want to be standardized. Anyway, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. I'm hearing that a lot is start broad, do a lot of different things, wear many hats, and then over time, maybe you could start niching down and what interests you in the, yeah, exactly. And I've also heard that other suggestion you gave is to like, I want to say I was talking to Dr. Ingrid Bauer, and she was recommending potentially becoming a nurse or a doctor, or like you said, a mental health care practitioner of some sort. And then you do have some sort of credential and a steady paycheck, hopefully. So yeah, those are great suggestions, Betzy. Thank you so much.
Can I plug a class?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just going to get to the part where I said any fun and exciting projects you got coming up. Is that what you're going to talk about?
Yes, I do have fun and exciting projects. So, I'm gonna a little bit hop on this bandwagon of pre-recorded courses.
Yeah.
So at some point, don't hold your breath. I'm gonna pre-record at least a nutrition class and probably a food as medicine class, and probably also some kind of like microbe thing. It's like the digestive system, the immune system, the neuroendocrine system. And because I already teach that curriculum for VCIH. So what I'm basically doing is I'm gonna pre-record some of the curriculum that I already teach here and make it available to everybody. But the short-term project is coming up this next summer. Emily and Ruff and I will be doing a 4-weekend immersion at Sage Mountain in person with all like hands-on stuff. So there will be curriculum based on various spheres of function in the body, like distribution. So not specific systems, but more like functions, spheres of function, with a lot of like harvest the medicine, prepare the medicine, make the medicine, take the medicine, herb walks. It's the Sage Mountain is hands down the best place to go for herb walks I have ever been, because we have gardens, we have forest, we have fen, we have meadow. And so yeah, it's a totally hands-on in-person immersion course. I think Emily's calling it Sage Mountain Herbal Immersion.
Oh, I was gonna ask. Okay.
But yeah, you can find out about that one at sagemountain.com. And Emily and I are dear friends, and she blames me for moving to Sage Mountain. And it'll be really fun to collaborate with her. I mean, we have very complementary, but also some very different skills. And yeah, we're really psyched to make this available this summer.
So I don't suppose like the landing page is up for that yet. So we'll just link to sagemountain.com, like you said.
I need to find out if the landing is up for that. But it will be soon if it's not yet.
Emily's always on top of it, so you could always count on her. Yeah, she's amazing.
I'm kind of in awe of Emily. But yeah, so look for online offerings and also courses at Sage. And yeah.
Where do we find out about the online offering you're going to be doing? Is that VCIH?
It will probably be available through VCIH. VCIH now has one of those platforms where you can buy classes and courses. So like we just put out a bundle of 3 Materia Medica class recordings. There's also some other like community workshop recordings that are available there. So I'm sure vtherbcenter.org, there's some link to that, and you can find your way.
Okay.
But I anticipate that's where I will make those available is through VCIH's like buy this video setup.
I will link there and their main website, and then if you find out a different location, you can just email me and I'll update the podcast description and
Thank
whatnot,
you.
because we
I
want to
re-
make sure people are able to get to it. Yeah.
I really appreciate that because marketing has never been my forte.
Well, that's where I come in, Betsy.
Yeah, I'd rather be in the kitchen.
Well, I was going to say, y'all herbalists are doing the real work anyways, so we're just out here doing some random marketing stuff. But yeah, we'll make sure people are able to find all of that. I got to say, Betsy, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, so I really appreciate you coming on the show, spending an hour with us. Did you have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Go play in the dirt. Go outside. Do things for yourself. Like someone came to a class with me a couple of summers ago and said, well, where are more classes I can take? And I said, go home and make some tea. Like do the herbs. You know what I mean? Like you get enough in the like theoretical realm. Like make it real and practical for yourself. Like put poultices on yourself. Drink lots of tea, smell the flowers. I think that's where it's at.
Amen.
And you clean some microbes that way too, right?
That's right. Right on. Well, thank you so much, Betsy, and thanks you all for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour.
Thank you, Mason.
Thank you very much. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.